Let's work this one together. It's not a data sufficiency, so I don't need the 1 to 10. Go ahead and read it. I'll give you a few seconds to read the question, and then we'll work it together. Great, so do we have a proportion here? It seems like it. We have a ratio where they gave us 100,000 sets of Christmas tree lights, 73 were returned because of faulty bulbs. Great, and then they want to say if 5 million, which is like 5,000 sets of Christmas tree lights were sold, how many of these were returned because of faulty bulbs? So we set the two ratios equal to each other, we have a proportion, we cross multiply, so we should get this for our multiplication, and that should leave us with 100x equals, now we have 73 times 5,000. At this point, some people think that they've done something wrong, that they shouldn't get this complicated a piece of math, or I shouldn't do it, or I should know some magical way of instantly answering this question, like it would take me too long. But go ahead and time how long it takes me to work this arithmetically written out. So I'm done. I don't think that was 10 seconds. What do you think, Jake?
Not too long, maybe 7.
Maybe 7 seconds. But under 10 seconds, no problem. I have my answer here, 365,000. And I just want to divide both sides by 100 to solve for x. And we should get x equals 3650, which looks like is C. So what we did is we were presented in English a question about ratios and proportions. We translated it because as a GMAT robot, we've learned to anticipate this type of question on the GMAT. When we see it, we recognize it, and we execute on what we learned in terms of processing these types of questions. And when we ended up with some actual arithmetic to do, some number crunching, it really wasn't bad. 73 times 5, we did it in 5 or 6 seconds. Don't spend too much time on the GMAT thinking about quick or simple ways to do something that's quick and simple already, which is multiplying a 2-digit number by a 1-digit number. Set it up, answer it, and you'll be done. You can see that the amount of scratch pad that we needed was not a lot, so we can answer these types of questions in the space that the GMAT gives us. We can manage the information management challenge. That said, let's hope we're right, and we're correct. So great. Ratios and proportions, we've covered those. We've seen an example of those types of questions. Let's go back, talk a little bit more about percents. We talked about percents a little bit. I want to just review them and make sure that we've covered all the pieces and give you some of these conversions that are useful to memorize in terms of being able to work questions on the GMAT quickly. And these are the fractions. You know, we have basically 1 over something all the way through 9. Having these memorized will give us percentages quickly, and also give us the decimals very quickly in terms of processing the arithmetic on these, and then we go all the way up to 1/12. So the GMAT doesn't usually step out of these bounds very much. So you don't need to learn 1 over everything from 1 to 1,000,000. You don't need to learn 1 over everything from 1 to 20. 1 over everything from 1 to 12 should cover the bulk of any questions that the GMAT asks you about these, and you'll be able to process these questions 15, 20, 30 seconds faster depending on how quickly you process these types of questions. So again, we know that the GMAT likes to present us math questions in the form of English, and let's take a look at an example of that. 20% of 50 is 25% of what number? So if you didn't know this, the word of can be replaced with, well, everyone type in the chat box, tell me, what can the word of be replaced with when we're creating a mathematical equation? We can replace the word of with a multiplication. We can replace the word what number with a variable. and we can often, and we can, the way I respond to a 20% on the, when I see that, I just look at it as 20 over 100 so I can do some simple arithmetic. So if I translate this English into a math equation, I end up with 20, and I'll translate it as I read it, 20% of 50 is, well, is an equal sign, 25% of what number? So I've translated the English that the GMAT gave me into a simple algebraic equation without too many variables or too many nasty numbers that I can process really quickly. Great. Let's actually work a percent question with each other in just a moment. I just want to talk a little bit more about numbers and operations and take a look at a question that incorporates some of these, and we have a question on this page that will work as well. So we talked a little bit about percents before, but we didn't talk about percent increase or decrease or percent change. So the GMAT likes to add a little twist to percent questions and start talking about percent change. Again, it further increases the complexity around an information management challenge. So let's take a look at an example here. I'll give you a moment to read this question that we have here. Good. So we have our common conversions over here, and they told us that due to increased fuel prices, the price of plastic raised 12.5%. So we know that 12.5% is really the same as 1/8. So this is why we've written that here. So 1/8 of 400, which is the amount that it increased, if the plastic cost $400 per half ton in 2005, what was the cost of 1 ton? Notice how they moved from 1 ton, half ton to 1 ton of plastic in 2006. So 1/8 of 500 gives us 50, which is the amount that it increased, and we know it was 400 to start. So the price of half a ton in 2006 should be $4.50. The GMAT, trying to make this a nasty information management challenge, and knows that you're trying to work quickly, and knows that you probably, about 300,000 people take the GMAT every year. We don't get all of them in our Grockit GMAT course, so maybe not everybody knows this, and that some people are trying to think and remember at the same time. We know not to do that, so we're a lot less likely to fall for a trap like this, and that is specifically why the GMAT is using questions like that. They work at getting the responses that they need to from people. So just pay attention that we're keeping the same values here and the same, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm blanking on the word. So we went from $4.50 per half ton to $900 per ton. This is a question that we made up, so there's not really any answer choices. We just found the value. The things to keep in mind here, what was helpful is, again, even when the GMAT isn't using the fractions, they like these percents as values to use, and if we're plugging them in, it's easy to do. It's a little bit easier to do 1/8 times 400, because we can move this 8 into the 400 and we end up with 50. So these can be time-saving devices for us. Great, let's just talk about percent change as well. To find the percent change, apply this formula. You're going to want to memorize this formula here. The percent change is our new number minus our original number over our original number. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example of a question like this. Go ahead and take a moment and just read this question right here. So, being a GMAT robot, we read this question. We hear by what was the price. The question on the real GMAT would probably say percent. By what percent was the price of the car reduced? We know that we have a percent change question on our hands, and instantly as a GMAT robot, we should be thinking about this equation to use, and so we have it down here. That the percent change equals the new number minus the original number over the original number. Let's plug in a car goes on sale for 24. If the original price was 30, so we know that this is the new price. This is the OG price, if you will. And so we will just plug into this equation, which would give us 24,000 minus 30,000 over 30,000. It was a reduction, so it makes sense that in the end we're going to end up with a negative number. If we simplify, we get negative 6,000 over 3,000. Simplify that further, gives us negative 1/5. And if we have this list memorized, we can see that the reduction was a 20% reduction. So again, simple question. Not necessarily easy, but simple, and if we have these common conversions memorized, it helps us get through them a little bit more quickly, and if we have this equation memorized and we know when to identify it, it'll also allow us to move very quickly through these questions. And GMAT loves these types of questions because they're good information management challenges. Great, now let's actually take a look at a live question.